Well, this is no laughing matter. The travel industry has been rocked by big news in the past week.
So let's see, you have the mega merger between U.S. Air and American Airlines and that debacle at sea for Carnival Cruise Lines.
Oh, yes. Both could have a major impact on your future travel plans. And travel expert Mark Murphy is here to break it all down. So thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start off with the big story, the Carnival Cruise Line's Triumph Ocean Liner.
Yep.
How do you think Carnival handled the whole situation?
I think they got out in front of it, and I know some people are criticizing them, but I think they were very proactive. I don't think they've been as proactive in the past, so I think it was a nice change. People had a terrible time at sea, but I think they reacted and tried to get out with what they're going to give them from a standpoint of compensation, refunds, future credits, some cash compensation, and people don't realize because of cruise contracts, they don't have to do much of that.
Right, but was it enough?
Well, you know what? Legally, they don't really have to do anything.
Okay.
So they got out in front of it. Now, I think some people are going to say it's not enough, right? And we're hearing a lot of that. Other people are saying, you know what? It's okay. I understand because things happen. The world's not perfect. We're talking about 20 million people cruised last year.
Wow.
There are 4,000 on this ship. So the odds are in your favor. If you take a cruise, you're probably going to have a pretty good time. And I think most people do enjoy cruising.
What about the long-term impact this will have on the cruise industry and on Carnival in particular, really?
Okay, so Carnival controls about 60% of all cruise ships.
Wow.
So most people don't understand, Carnival Corporate owns a ton of cruise lines. Just Carnival Cruise Line is just one of their brands. So Carnival Cruise Line as a brand is an entry-level brand. It's where a lot of first-time cruisers go. So the fear is that when you hear about incidents like this, does it affect the mindset of the person who is considering taking a cruise and then says, you know what, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And that's the biggest fear. And then those people that do the first-time cruise, there's about a 95% satisfaction rate. Question is, do they graduate up to the more premium, deluxe, and ultimately luxury lines throughout their life cycle? And that, I think, if I'm Carnival and, of course, the rest of the cruise industry, that's where I get concerned on the first-timers.
Yeah, that's big money.
It sets the tone.
Exactly, yeah.
So I know it's early, but I'm going to lay a lot of stats on you because I want to talk about the big air merger between number one and now we have the new number one airline. American and U.S. Air had $38 billion in combined revenue last year. Together they have 120,000 employees and 1,500 planes, just a few. They have a combined $254 billion in available seat miles, which is how, of course, airlines measure their capacity for passengers. Is this a good thing for the flying public?
Okay, so I'll start with the airlines. Great for the airlines because you can't have an airline system where everyone's going bankrupt constantly, which is what we've seen, right? So we need a stable airline system. The downside for the consumers is the vast majority of air travel is going to be controlled by the three majors. And what that means to me, higher ticket prices.
Right, I was going to ask, is it a monopoly now?
Yeah, well, yeah, sort of. So pseudo-monopoly is what I call it because you got the three really controlling it. And if you want to go anywhere, let's say you want to fly down to Reagan International Airport, well, two airlines, you know, U.S. Air and American, control now 63% of those flights. So who's going to have pricing power if you want to fly to Reagan International Airport? They are. They're going to be able to set the prices. Until the smaller, lower-cost carriers like a la JetBlue step in and say, hey, there's opportunity to make a profit because I have a lower cost basis than, let's say, the legacy carriers, then you're going to see, I think, fares rise. There'll still be fare wars because there's different peaks and valleys in travel demand, and because of that, you're going to see fares fluctuate because it's called yield management. They're constantly changing the fares, and that last available seat, they want to maximize that out.
Right.
But my question is, what about smaller airports? What if, you know, I used to fly to Knoxville or I used to fly to Chattanooga?
West Palm.
Yeah.
Are we gonna see the routes change?
You're going to see more connections from those secondary markets, less nonstop service to the major markets. So I think what you're going to find is you're going to be connecting more through one of those 9 hubs that are part of this new merger, and you may actually see one of those hubs go away. They're talking about that.
Which one?
Potentially, they're potentially talking about Phoenix might get a hit there.
Really?
So yeah, so there's talk of that.
Okay.
Now,
what about service? Are we going to see a decline in service? Because, I mean, that's a lot of people choose their airlines because of the service.
I beg to differ. I think they choose it just on price.
Really?
It has become a commodity. Unless you're flying internationally, and if you're going to fly internationally, you want great service because you're on that plane for 16, 17 hours to Hong Kong, right? It's going to be important. So I think less and less it has become about service and more about the traveling public looking at it as a commodity and buying it on price, which leads to ancillary fees. So when you look on the internet and you see the price is $4.99, but then you show up at the airport and it's $125 check bags.
Right.
It's, you know, you got to pay for this. Oh, yeah.
Overhead compartment fees.
Yeah,
Come on.
some of the airlines.
That's like crazy. Yes.
Yeah, so
okay.
they get you one way or the other is the reality of it.
Great.
Well, let's go back to Carnival now.
Sure.
You specialize in travel marketing. Have you helped Carnival at all through this whole saga, really?
Well, I think with Carnival, we've reported on it. So I have a site called travelpulse.com that people go to stay abreast of everything that's going on in the travel business. So we constantly update and report on what's happening for the travel industry through that site. What I find with Carnival is that we can go out and tell the real story, which is cruising is safe. I mean, the stats prove it out. So that's what we're doing. That's why one of the reasons I'm out here today is the numbers don't lie. 20 million consumers cruised last year. There were very few incidents that affected them, and that's why 95% of the people that cruise have a great time. I think what Carnival has to look at is the fact that travel agents sell the vast majority of cruises, and they become the crisis manager in these situations. So Carnival and the rest of the cruise lines really need to do a better job of communicating to the travel industry and to the travel agents who are really their brand ambassadors to the consumer. So guess who the consumer is going to call when they have a question about that booked cruise that's leaving in 3 months?
Travel agent.
The travel agent who actually booked it.
Yeah.
Really quick question before you go. I'm sorry. Trip insurance. I always see it whenever I'm booking something. Would that have made any difference to these people if they had travel insurance?
Not while you're sailing. Not while you're sailing.
Really?
Right.
Okay.
After the fact, depending on the policy, because they're not gonna fly a helicopter and get you off the ship.
True.
You're stuck.
Yeah.
But afterwards, depending on the insurance policy you booked, then you may have some recourse because your trip was interrupted. So there's something called trip interruption insurance. And again, it all comes down to the fine print. If you don't read the fine print and you don't cover all the bases, you're probably out of luck when it comes to the insurance.
All right.
Yikes. All right, so be cautious when you're traveling. Mark Murphy, thank you so much for dropping by the couch this morning.
Cool socks, too.